The jungle was alive in a way that made every step feel dangerous. Glowing plants hung from twisted branches, their light soft but strange, and the air was thick with a scent that was both sweet and sharp. Strange insects zipped past in flashes of color, and distant roars echoed through the thick undergrowth. Human explorers called this planet VR07, and most of them avoided it. It was too wild, too unpredictable. Yet Kale had chosen this place, not for adventure alone, but for necessity. He moved carefully, boots sinking slightly in the moss-covered ground, scanning every shadow. His mission was simple on paper: chart the jungles and report on any wildlife that could threaten or help future human colonies. But Kale was more than just a scout. He was a thinker, a problem solver, someone who relied on quick thinking more than sheer strength. Still, even he felt the tension of this place in his bones. Then he heard a sound that made every hair on his arm stand up. A high-pitched cry unlike any animal he had ever heard. Kale froze, listening. The cry was panicked, desperate. It wasn't animal. It was intelligent. Someone or something was in trouble. He followed the sound cautiously, pushing aside thick vines and ducking under low-hanging branches. As he approached, the glow of the plants dimmed, and he saw her. She was caught in a trap, one that looked both mechanical and organic. Her body was slim, her skin a deep blue with delicate silver markings that shimmered even in the low light. She was beautiful, unlike anything Kale had seen, and despite her regal bearing, she was struggling, panicked and afraid. "Hold still," Kale called, approaching carefully. He could see the sharp claws of a predator snapping just outside the trap, circling. He understood quickly. If he didn't act, she would be dead within moments. "Wait," he muttered to himself, crouching and examining the trap. It was advanced alien technology, yet oddly fragile in certain spots. Kale's mind raced. He couldn't let the predator reach her first. He couldn't simply cut her free without knowing what the trap would do. Then he saw a small panel on the side of the trap. He pressed a sequence of buttons he didn't fully understand. The trap wind clicked, and then locked tighter for a moment, almost as if it were testing him. Kale held his breath, trying a different combination, moving slowly but decisively. Finally, with a hiss and a faint glow, the trap's grips loosened. The queen stumbled forward, her wings brushing the ground. She turned her eyes toward him. Kale could see her pupils elongate like a cat's, shimmering with intelligence and wariness. "You saved me," she said, her voice musical but commanding. "Why?" Kale swallowed. "'Cause no one deserves to die alone. Especially not someone caught in a trap." The predator growled closer, and Kale didn't hesitate. He grabbed a nearby branch, shaped it into a makeshift weapon, and threw himself in front of the queen. Using his agility, he dodged the predator's strikes and managed to drive it back into the shadows. The queen watched, impressed and silent. Finally, the predator retreated, slinking into the jungle. Kale breathed hard, sweat running down his face. "Are you okay?" he asked. The queen nodded. "Thanks to you. I am Lyra, queen of the Zyphorian Empire, and you are." Kale gave a small smile. Kale, explorer, scout, human. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Human," she repeated, testing the word. It was clear she had never met a human before, at least not up close. Kale could feel her intelligence analyzing him, trying to measure whether he was a threat. "You are brave," she said finally, stepping closer and reckless. "Maybe," Kale said with a shrug. "But sometimes courage is the only choice." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You have saved my life. That is rare among humans. Most fear us. Most wish to avoid conflict. You face it." Kale felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had risked his life, yes, but never for a queen, and never for someone who could change the balance of an entire interstellar empire. Yet here he was, standing in front of Lyra, and for the first time, he felt that the universe was much larger than any map or mission report could show. The jungle around them seemed too quiet as she took a step closer. Kale noticed her injuries. Small cuts from the trap and a faint bruise along her side. He instinctively took out his medical kit. "Here, let me help."
No.
she said firmly. I am not weak. I survived this trap until you arrived. That is enough. Right. Kale raised an eyebrow. Maybe, but even the strongest need help sometimes. She studied him again, then finally allowed him to clean and bandage the cuts. Their hands brushed briefly, and for a heartbeat, Kale felt a connection that went beyond language or species. It was as if two very different worlds had collided and understood each other perfectly in that instant. Night fell, and the jungle changed. The glowing plants became brighter, casting soft light across the clearing. The sounds of predators were muted, almost respectful. Lyra and Kale sat near a small fire he managed to start, using sparks and dry moss. You have stayed with me all this time, Lyra said softly. Most would leave after saving me. Why not you? Kale shrugged again. I couldn't just leave. Not while you were in danger. Not after what I saw in your eyes. Lyra tilted her head. In my culture, a queen is untouchable. Humans, you are different. You do not fear me. You do not worship me. You see me as a being. Kale smiled faintly. Maybe that's the only way to really see anyone. They talked through the night, sharing stories of their worlds. Lyra spoke of her empire, vast fleets, politics, and responsibilities heavier than anything Kale had imagined. Kale shared tales of Earth, humanity's courage, curiosity, and stubbornness. She laughed at some things, shook her head at others, but always with respect. As the stars shifted above them, something unspoken grew between them. Not just gratitude, not just fascination, but a bond that neither fully understood yet. The firelight reflected in Lyra's eyes, making them shimmer with a strange, alien brilliance. Kale felt a pull he couldn't explain. Hours passed, and exhaustion crept in. Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. You have risked much. For me, I do not know how to repay you. Kale shook his head. No repayment needed. You're alive. That's enough. But she did not move away. Instead, she leaned slightly closer, her warmth and presence enveloping him. The night was quiet except for the soft hum of the jungle. Kale realized he had never felt anything like this before. Fear, respect, fascination, and something deeper, all mingling together. Finally, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Stay with me, just for tonight. Kale hesitated for only a moment before nodding. There was no other world here, no politics, no empire, just the moment and the bond between them. That night under alien stars, two beings from entirely different worlds shared a rare closeness, one born from trust, courage, and the undeniable spark of understanding. By morning, Kale knew what he had to do. The Empire would be searching for her. For him, staying was impossible. Lyra, regal and powerful, looked at him with a mix of gratitude and sadness. You will leave? She asked, already knowing the answer. Kale nodded. I have to.
Oh.
I'll always remember this night. Always. She nodded, her eyes shimmering. And I will too, Kale. You are not like the others. You are extraordinary. Gave a small, respectful bow. Then take care, Queen Lyra. Be safe. Rule wisely. Without another word, Kale turned and disappeared into the jungle, leaving no trace of his presence. Lyra watched him go, her heart heavy, but her mind racing. She had saved her life that night, yes, but it was he who had saved her in ways she did not yet fully understand. Her heart, her trust, her sense of wonder. The jungle seemed quiet again, but Lyra knew the memory of the human who had risked everything, for her, would never fade. Somewhere out there, among the stars and worlds, he existed, and one day, perhaps, their paths would cross again. For now, she would return to her empire, to her duties, to her throne. But a part of her, a small, stubborn, human-sized part, hoped that wherever he was, Kale was alive, and perhaps thinking of her as she thought of him. The first light of the alien sun broke through the canopy, casting golden light over the jungle. Lyra took a deep breath, gathering her strength, and stepped forward into the path that would take her back to her people. She was a queen, a ruler, and yet she carried with her a secret, a secret of a night shared with a human who had vanished like a shadow, leaving only the memory of courage, warmth, and connection that crossed the boundaries of worlds. And far away, hidden in the shadows of the jungle, Kale walked silently, carrying with him the quiet knowledge that he had done the right thing, and that some bonds unexpected, improbable, extraordinary, were meant to endure. Even across the vastness of space, the stars above seemed to shimmer a little brighter that day, as if acknowledging the beginning of a story that neither human nor alien would ever forget. The palace of the Xiphorian Empire rose like a monument among the stars, floated in orbit above a world of swirling clouds and glowing oceans. A structure of metal and crystal that seemed impossible to some eyes, but ordinary to those who had lived in the empire for generations. Inside, golden corridors stretched endlessly, and the air carried a faint hum as the power of energy fields running through every wall. It was a place of rules, of expectations, of power, but it felt constricting. To Lyra now, after the night in the jungle with Kale, she walked through the halls with measured steps, her mind heavy with memories. No one in her court knew what had happened, and she intended to keep it that way. They only saw a queen returning from a dangerous mission, unharmed and composed, as always. But in her heart, she carried the echo of a human who had risked everything. To save her, her advisors awaited her in the Grand Council chamber. They were a mix of species, each trained to serve the Empire with precision. They bowed as she entered, and she returned the gesture with grace. "You are safe, Your Majesty," one of them said. A tall figure with pale green skin and 4 eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. "We feared the worst when we lost contact during your mission," Lyra nodded. "The worst did not happen. The mission was dangerous." She did not explain how she survived. They would not understand, not fully. Another advisor, a being with metallic skin and a voice like a low bell, spoke. "We have received reports from border scouts. There are new threats in the southern sectors: pirates, rogue fleets, and humans." Lyra's heart skipped. Humans. She had been thinking about Kale constantly since that night. His face, his courage, the way he had looked at her without fear had haunted her thoughts. "What do you mean, humans?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "They are exploring new sectors, colonizing minor planets, sending probes into our space. They are becoming bolder," the advisor said. Lyra's mind raced. She had just experienced a human in their rawest form, fearless and clever. If Kale were alive, he might be among them. She forced herself to remain calm. As queen, she could not allow personal feelings to interfere with judgment. And yet the thought of him stirred something deeper than duty, something that refused to be ignored. Her next hours were filled with reports, strategies, and court politics. She listened to generals debate fleet movements, scientists argue over planetary resources, and diplomats quarrel over trade agreements. All the while, her thoughts kept drifting back to the human who had vanished into the jungle. She could not shake the memory of him leaving without a word. Later, in her private chamber, Lyra allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. She stood by the panoramic window, looking down at her world. The cities glittered like jewels, the ships moved in precise formations, and the oceans shimmered with reflected starlight. Everything was ordered, predictable, and safe, yet she felt incomplete. She reached for a device on her desk, a small holographic recorder. Her fingers hovered over the controls. If Kale were alive, she wanted him to know she remembered him. Even if she could not speak to him, she activated it, speaking softly. "Kale, wherever you are, I remember. You are brave. You're extraordinary. I do not know if fate will allow us to meet again, but I hope it does. You have changed me. Remember that I will always... da-da-da-da." She stopped. Her words caught in her throat. She could not finish, not in the way her heart demanded. She ended the message, storing it securely, knowing it might never reach him. Days passed, but the thought of Kale did not fade. She walked through the palace gardens, her attendants moving silently around her, and her mind replayed the events of that night. Every detail, every glance, every word. She wondered how a human could be so fearless, so clever, so remarkable. Her curiosity became a quiet obsession. She began asking discreet questions. "Have any humans been sighted near the jungle?" she asked one of her scouts. "None," the scout replied. "We monitored the area for months. Nothing. No signs of human presence." She frowned. How could that be? Kale had been there. He had saved her. And now, as if he had vanished into thin air, there was no trace. The more she thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. And yet she trusted her instincts. Humans were unpredictable, clever, resourceful. If he were alive, he would be somewhere doing something remarkable. Lyra's counsel noticed the change in her demeanor. She became quieter, more thoughtful. She would smile occasionally, but her eyes betrayed a deeper contemplation. Advisors whispered among themselves, wondering what had captured their queen's mind so completely. None could guess the truth, that it was a single human who had left her empire quietly, but who had never left her thoughts. Meanwhile, Kale was alive, exploring other worlds. The jungle where he had rescued Lyra faded behind him, replaced by alien deserts, frozen plains, and asteroid fields. He had no plan to return to Xiforia, no desire to become entangled in imperial politics. Yet sometimes, when he looked at the stars or felt the alien wind on his face, he thought of her. He thought of her courage, her beauty, her intelligence. He did not know if she remembered him. He did not know if she had even survived. Yet he carried the memory of her with him, quietly, like a flame he could not extinguish. Back in the Empire, Lyra decided to take action. She could not simply wait. She began to search quietly, using scouts and agents under the guise of diplomatic missions. They scoured human sectors, searching for any signs of a remarkable explorer fitting Kale's description. Reports came back, often contradictory. Some claimed to have seen a human in remote settlements. Others said humans had been spotted exploring uncharted planets. Nothing was confirmed. The queen grew frustrated, but she did not give up. She realized that if Kale were alive, he would likely be hiding in plain sight, moving between worlds, leaving subtle traces. She instructed her agents to search for patterns, small signals, unusual survival techniques, stories among explorers that mentioned a human with extraordinary skill and courage. Weeks turned into months. The search revealed strange coincidences. A settlement on a distant asteroid mentioned a human who had outsmarted alien raiders. A trading post reported a human who had saved a group of miners from a collapsing tunnel. Another record mentioned a human who had navigated deadly storms. On a barren planet with nothing but a small ship and determination, Lyra's heart raced each time she read these accounts. She recognized the traits: courage, cleverness, calm, and danger. It had to be him. But the more she tried to pinpoint his location, the more elusive he became. Humans were cunning in ways she had never fully anticipated. Kale was a master of unpredictability, a quality that both frustrated and fascinated her. In the meantime, political pressures mounted. Other empires and factions noticed the absence of decisive action from Xiforia regarding human expansion. Lyra faced counsel from her advisors to ignore humans as minor threats or to confront them directly. But she saw the potential in them. Kale had shown her that humans were more than their reputation. They were capable of ingenuity, loyalty, and bravery beyond expectation. She kept her personal missions separate from her duties. Private, she worked through the signals, the reports, and the subtle clues he left behind. In public, she ruled with precision, maintaining the appearance of a queen focused on the Empire's affairs. Yet in the quiet hours, when the stars were visible through her chamber's transparent walls, she allowed herself to dream of finding him. One evening, as she examined a map of the outer sectors, a new report arrived. It came from a distant system near uncharted asteroid belts. The message was brief, almost casual. A human fitting your description of interest has been observed leading a small expedition in the sector known as Voron. Further details follow. Her pulse quickened. The coordinates placed him closer than she had expected. It had been 5 years since she had last seen him. 5 years since he had vanished into the jungle. And now, finally, there was a thread to follow, a lead that could bring her back to the human who had left an indelible mark on her life. She studied the details carefully, noting the ships he had been using, the unusual navigation routes, and the patterns in his movements. It was clear that he was cautious, clever, and deliberately avoiding detection. Yet even in his careful concealment, he had left signs that only someone who truly knew him would recognize. Lyra made her decision. She would go to him. She could not ignore this any longer, but it would not be easy. She could not reveal her identity, not yet, not until she had confirmed it was truly him. She would travel incognito, blending in with explorers and traders, using her knowledge of human behavior to remain unnoticed. As she prepared, Lyra felt a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. The hunt for Kale was no longer about duty or empire. It was personal. The queen of a mighty interstellar empire was about to become a traveler among the stars, searching for a single human who had changed her life in ways no one else could understand. And somewhere out there, Kale continued his exploration, unaware that the queen whose life he had saved 5 years ago was moving quietly across the galaxy, following the subtle signs he had left. Neither knew what would happen when their paths crossed again, but both carried the memory of that night in the jungle, a memory that neither time nor distance could erase. The galaxy was vast, filled with stars, dangers, and mystery. Lyra's ship cut silently through the vast darkness of space, its engines humming with quiet power. She sat in the command seat, eyes fixed on the navigation panel, tracing the small dots that marked the sectors Kale had been seen in. Every movement of a ship, every unusual report, every whisper from a remote settlement she monitored became part of a pattern she was piecing together. The galaxy was enormous, but Kale had left signs, and she intended to follow them wherever they led. Her mind wandered back to that night in the jungle. The memory of Kale's hands, his courage, and the way he had looked at her without fear was always there, behind her thoughts. It was a distraction, but also a motivation. He had risked his life for her without a second thought. 5 years had passed, yet the bond from that night felt as strong as ever. She shook herself, forcing her mind back to the mission. She could not let emotion cloud her judgment, not entirely. The first lead took her to Voron 9, a remote sector filled with asteroid belts, debris fields, and abandoned colonies. According to the reports, a human matching Kale's description had been seen navigating the sector with extraordinary skill. Lyra adjusted the ship's course, guiding it through the dense clouds of rock with the precision of someone who had mastered space travel over years of experience. Her ship moved carefully, almost as if it were a living being, sensing the obstacles in its path. She had taken precautions to remain incognito, altering her ship's appearance to resemble a common explorer's craft. Any sensors scanning the sector would see her as just another traveler. But she knew Kale was clever. Where in this sector, he would detect any unusual presence. She had to move cautiously, avoid patterns, and blend with the chaos of the asteroid field. Hours passed, and the navigation panel blinked with data. Small settlements, abandoned mining stations, and drifting freighters appeared as she scanned. The sector, each could be a hiding place, each a potential clue. She began sending discreet signals, messages embedded in harmless data transmissions, hoping that if Kale noticed, he would respond. She did not expect him to, but hope stirred anyway. Her first stop was a small mining colony orbiting a cold, gray asteroid. She docked quietly, blending in with the routine traffic of supply ships. The miners were wary, but nothing about her ship or appearance alarmed them. She inquired casually, asking if they had seen any human explorers passing through, describing Kale without giving his name, a human. "Maybe there's been a few," said one miner, a grizzled veteran with a face scarred by asteroid storms. "One of them helped us out a while back. Smart, fast. Disappeared before anyone could ask questions." Lyra's heart skipped. That was him. She pressed for more details, careful not to reveal her excitement. "Which way did he go?" she asked, keeping her voice calm. The miner shrugged. "Out toward the outer belt. Said he had business with some abandoned research stations. Last I saw, he was heading into the storm clusters." She thanked him and left the station, her pulse quickening. Every step, every clue brought her closer. The outer belt was dangerous, filled with shifting rocks, magnetic storms, and abandoned satellites. Yet she felt alive in a way she had not for years. She was no longer a queen sitting on a throne. She was a traveler searching for something or someone she could not forget. The asteroid storm was unforgiving. Lyra maneuvered her ship through narrow passages, dodging large chunks of rock that could crush even the strongest hull. She relied on instincts honed from years of piloting and observing, her hands moving with precision across the controls. The sector seemed almost alive, rocks shifting, metal groaning, as if the universe itself were testing her. Then she saw Ada. Small figure navigating through the storm with skills she recognized immediately. The ship was human-made, small, sleek, and moving with a confidence that matched the stories. Kale, her heart leapt. She followed him quietly, careful not to reveal her presence. He moved with purpose, avoiding debris, adjusting his course instinctively, as if he were dancing with the asteroid storm. Lyra felt a mixture of awe and admiration. 5 years had passed, yet his skill, courage, and cleverness were as sharp as ever. Kale noticed her finally, a subtle shift in his course and a cautious scan. Lyra held her breath. He was wary, as expected, but he did not flee. He was smart enough to realize she could be friend or foe, and he was assessing the situation carefully. She remained still, showing no aggressive movement, letting him see that she posed no threat, at least for now. The two ships moved through the storm, each aware of the other, both cautious, both intelligent. It was a delicate dance of observation, strategy, and silent communication. Lyra's pulse raced, but her mind remained focused. She could not rush. She needed to understand if this was truly Kale, and she needed him to trust her, or at least not see her as danger. Finally, Kale brought his ship closer to a narrow passage, a place only someone with extraordinary skill could navigate. He paused, scanning the area, his instincts alert. But Lyra took a chance. She adjusted her ship slightly, a minor maneuver that signaled no hostility, but curiosity and recognition. His sensors picked up subtle cues she had left intentionally in the data streams earlier. His ship slowed, hovering as he processed the signals, and then he understood. Kale's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. He was human, and he recognized a human's cleverness, 7, when it came from an alien queen. Lyra, he whispered to himself, barely audible over his comm system. She activated her own channel, her voice calm but firm. Kale, it is me. There was a pause, a moment of disbelief, and then slowly, Kale's ship moved aside, giving her a clear path to follow. He was cautious, but he was not running. The recognition, the trust that had formed in that jungle 5 years ago, had not disappeared. It was still there, quiet, unbroken. Lyra followed him into a hidden research station nestled within the asteroid field. It was abandoned, left long ago by explorers who had underestimated the dangers of the storm. The station was dark, silent, and eerie but safe from prying eyes. Kale docked carefully, exiting his ship first, scanning the interior for any threats. When Lyra stepped inside, she removed her helmet, revealing her face. Kale froze, the sight of her sudden real and alive, almost stopping his heart. She had changed slightly, older, wiser, stronger, but she was still the same queen who had shared that night with him in the jungle. 5 years, he said softly, almost in disbelief. I thought you might never find me. Had to, she replied, her voice steady but carrying the weight of emotion. I have searched every lead, every report, and here you are, live, clever, just as I remembered. Kale allowed a small smile. I've been careful. It's not easy to hide when someone as intelligent as you is looking. She walked closer, studying him, noting the lines of experience etched into his face. You've survived all these years on your own, moving between dangerous sectors, avoiding detection. And yet, somehow you left traces, signs that only I would notice. Kale shrugged. Maybe I wanted to be found. Maybe I wanted someone to understand what I've done, why I've done it. But not just anyone. I didn't want attention, and I certainly didn't want trouble. You have been remarkable, Lyra said softly. More than I could have imagined. And yet even after all these years you remain human, fearless, clever, stubborn. I admire that. Kale felt a warmth he had not allowed himself to feel. In years, I admire you too, he said quietly. For surviving, for ruling, for everything you are. They stood together, the asteroid storm humming outside, the abandoned station silent around them. 5 years had passed, but the bond between them, the trust, the courage, Adalon's spoken connection, was still intact. For hours, they shared stories again. Kale told of his travels, the dangers he had faced, the small victories and near defeats. Lyra spoke of her empire, the challenges of ruling, and the quiet longing that had driven her to find him. Each word, each story, each shared memory built the bridge that time had never broken. When the conversation lulled, a silence settled between them. It was comfortable, familiar, and intimate. The galaxy outside was vast, full of dangers and mysteries. But here, in this small station hidden among asteroids, they had a moment of peace. A moment where distance, duty, and time no longer mattered. Kale looked at her, noting the strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes, and the quiet vulnerability she allowed herself to show him. You didn't have to come, he said softly. I had to, she replied, not just as your queen, but as someone who remembers, someone who cannot forget. The station remained quiet as they stood together, 5 years of separation melting away with each heartbeat. Outside, the asteroid storm continued to rage, but inside, there was a fragile calm. 2 worlds, human and Xiphorian, had collided again. And neither would forget this moment. Lyra knew that the challenges ahead would be great. The galaxy was unpredictable, and their enemies would not wait. But for now, in this hidden corner of space, she had found Kale, the human who had saved her life, shared a night under alien stars, and vanished into the unknown. Now, after 5 years, he was here, alive, present, and she would not let him slip away again. The first step of their renewed journey had begun. Both of them felt it's the quiet certainty that whatever the galaxy held, whatever dangers awaited, they would face it together. The asteroid station had become their refuge for only a short time. Kale and Lyra knew that remaining there was dangerous. Though the station was hidden among the dense belts of rock, it was still within range of scanners from rival factions. Humans and Xiphorians alike had enemies, and both Kale and Lyra had learned the hard way that danger often followed those who were clever and resourceful. Kale moved through the station with practiced ease, checking systems, securing supplies, and recalibrating sensors. Lyra observed him quietly, her sharp eyes noting the precision in his movements, the focus in his every action. Even after all these years apart, his skill was as impressive as the first night she had met him. He worked with a calm confidence. The kind of confidence that came from surviving impossible situations and thinking faster than almost anyone else. You've changed a little, Lyra said finally, breaking the silence. Kale glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. And you've grown stronger, wiser, still beautiful, but there's more to you now. Experience, responsibility, things I don't think I can fully understand. Lyra smiled faintly, but her expression grew serious. The galaxy hasn't become safer. In fact, it's getting more dangerous. My empire has rivals and humans. Humans are unpredictable. Your presence may bring more attention than you realize. Kale nodded. I know. I've avoided trouble as best I could. Sometimes trouble finds you anyway. They spoke in quiet tones, aware that their reunion, as joyful as it was, could not last in complete safety. Kale moved toward a panel, analyzing incoming signals. We have company, he said. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Who? Not human, Kale replied. Multiple ships, scanning the sector. It looks like they're following a pattern. Someone is tracking this station. Lyra's pulse quickened. She had expected this eventuality. Then we leave now. They moved quickly, boarding Kale's small but fast ship. The asteroid storm outside loomed large, dangerous, and unpredictable, but it offered them a perfect cover. Kale expertly piloted the ship through tight passages, the rocks seeming to bend around them as he moved. Lyra watched him, impressed and reassured. He was fearless, clever, and determined, a combination that made her heart both anxious and steady at the same time. As they left the station, ships behind them became visible, alien designs unfamiliar to either human or Xiphorian fleets. The pursuers were fast, precise, and relentless. Kale's ship darted through the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks, dodging energy blasts that sparked and scorched nearby asteroids. Lyra gripped the edges of her seat, feeling the tension in every maneuver. Kale, can we outrun them? She asked. He gave a short, confident laugh. Outrun? Maybe outsmart, definitely. His hands moved quickly over the controls, and the ship responded with perfect synchronicity. He led their pursuers into a narrow canyon filled with floating debris and magnetic anomalies. Kale had studied this sector well. He knew how to use the environment to their advantage. The alien ships struggled, colliding with rocks or getting caught in the magnetic fields. Lyra felt a rush of relief and admiration. This was the human she remembered, brilliant, daring, and utterly fearless. Once they had created enough distance, Kale brought the ship to a hidden corner of space. It was a small area surrounded by drifting satellites, old wreckage, and faint energy readings that could confuse any scanner. They slowed, catching their breath. You've gotten better, Lyra said, breaking the silence, her voice tinged with both pride and awe. Kale chuckled softly. You haven't seen anything yet. They shared a small smile, but both knew the danger was far from over. The galaxy was full of those who would take advantage of Kale's skills or Lyra's position. They had survived 5 years apart, but surviving together would require even greater cooperation, trust, and courage. They moved toward an abandoned freighter nearby, using it as a temporary shelter. Kale checked the systems, while Lyra scanned for any signs of their pursuers. The freighter was silent, cold, and deserted, but it provided just enough cover for them to plan their next move. Kale, Lyra said, breaking the quiet again. You have to understand, my empire has enemies everywhere. Humans, aliens, rival factions. Some of them will stop at nothing to capture me. If they find me with you, they will see you as a threat or worse, a bargaining piece. Kale nodded, understanding. Immediately, then we make sure that doesn't happen. We keep moving, stay ahead, and stay unpredictable. That's what we've always done. Lyra studied him closely. You're brave, almost reckless. Do you ever worry about what could happen to you? Kale shrugged. Of course I worry. But worrying doesn't solve anything. Action does. And right now, action means keeping us both alive. She admired his clarity, his focus, and his bravery. It reminded her of that night in the jungle, when he had risked everything for her without hesitation. And now, 5 years later, he was still the same, undaunted, clever, and fearless. They spent hours planning their route through the sector, analyzing the behavior of their pursuers and the obstacles they would face. Kale's knowledge of human exploration techniques, combined with Lyra's understanding of alien technology and strategy, made them a formidable team. Each suggestion, each adjustment, each calculated risk strengthened their trust and their bond as they prepared to leave the temporary shelter. Kale paused, looking at Lyra. I never expected to see you again, and yet, here you are. Lyra smiled softly, a mixture of relief and longing in her eyes. I had to find you. I could not let 5 years pass without knowing you were safe, without knowing if the bond we shared was still real. Kale stepped closer. It is real, he said quietly. And I felt it too every day. Even when I was alone, I thought of you, and it gave me strength. You gave me something I didn't know I needed." Their hands brushed, a small, fleeting touch that carried the weight of years, distance, and unspoken emotions. At that moment, neither of them cared about empires, politics, or enemies. There was only the connection that had survived 5 years. Stronger now, because it had endured absence, danger, and uncertainty. They returned to the ship, ready to navigate the next part of the asteroid field. The storm outside was chaotic, but Kale handled it with confidence, weaving through the shifting rocks with precision. Lyra monitored the sensors, noting the positions of the pursuing ships and the paths they would likely take. Together, they moved like a single entity, their minds aligned in a silent understanding. Hours passed, the asteroid field growing denser, more dangerous. Energy blasts from their pursuers sparked across the rocks, sending shards of metal and stone flying. Kale's ship dodged, ducked, and weaved, guided by instincts honed over years of survival. Lyra's heart pounded with every maneuver, but she also felt a thrill she had not experienced in years. This was adventure, danger, and trust all at once, a test of their courage and a reaffirmation of their bond. Finally, after a tense chase, Kale led the pursuers into a massive debris field. The alien ships collided with obstacles, forcing them to retreat or risk destruction. Kale's ship moved through the chaos with ease, emerging on the other side, both of them intact and victorious. Lyra let out a breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. "You never cease to amaze me," she said, her voice soft but full of admiration. Kale gave a small, confident smile. "You never cease to impress me. Even under pressure, even with danger all around, you remain calm, focused, and formidable." Shared a brief laugh, the tension easing for a moment, but both knew the galaxy held more dangers ahead. Their enemies would not give up easily, and their journey had only just begun. Yet, in that moment, they had survived together, trusted each other completely, and reaffirmed the bond that had started 5 years ago in a jungle on a distant planet. As the stars stretched endlessly around them, Lyra and Kale prepared to move deeper into unexplored sectors, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. They were no longer alone, no longer separated by distance or time. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with, their courage, intelligence, trust, making them stronger than any single opponent. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the galaxy seemed to acknowledge the beginning of a new chapter, one where a human and an alien queen, bound by fate, courage, and a bond that defied distance, would face dangers, adventures, and discoveries side by side. The stars stretched endlessly in all directions, a glittering ocean of light that hid both wonders and dangers. Lyra and Kale's ship moved cautiously through the uncharted sectors, leaving behind the chaos of the asteroid field. The tension from their recent chase had faded, placed by a careful awareness of the galaxy's unpredictability. Kale piloted the ship with skillful precision, his eyes constantly scanning the instruments, hands moving effortlessly over the controls. Lyra sat beside him, monitoring sensor readings and star charts. Their movements were synchronized, a reflection of trust built over shared danger and understanding. Neither spoke much. Words were unnecessary when every glance, every gesture, conveyed meaning. After hours of quiet navigation, the ship's sensors detected a faint energy signature ahead. Lyra leaned forward, studying the readings. "It's unusual," she said. "The energy pattern doesn't match any known natural phenomena in this region." Kale's brow furrowed. "Could be a trap, could be something abandoned, or it could be someone waiting for us." They approached cautiously, the vast darkness of space stretching around them. As they drew closer, the signature resolved into the outline of a massive derelict vessel. It floated silently, battered and scarred, yet massive and imposing. Kale adjusted the ship's shields and maneuvered closer, scanning for life forms or automated defenses. "This ship has been here for a long time," Kale said, noting the corrosion and impact marks on its hull. "But the energy signature, someone or something has been keeping systems online." Lyra studied the readings. "We need to find out who or what is here. But carefully, there's no telling what we might awaken." They docked with the derelict, moving slowly through, the airlock into its shadowed interior. The corridors were dark, silent, and eerie, echoing with the faint hum of residual energy. Kale led the way, his experience with dangerous environments guiding every step. Lyra followed, alert, her hand near the sidearm she carried for emergencies. The first rooms they entered were empty, abandoned quarters with personal effects scattered across the floor. Broken data pads, faded clothing, and cracked screens suggested a sudden departure. Kale examined a control panel, bringing up holographic records. "This ship belonged to a human expedition," he said quietly. "They were exploring the outer sectors, much like I have been. Something forced them to leave or vanish." Lyra studied the data carefully. 5 years ago, perhaps around the same time I disappeared into the jungle. There's a pattern here. Humans venturing into dangerous areas, leaving little trace. You were not the only one surviving on skill and courage alone. Kale nodded, his expression serious. But someone or something has been keeping this ship alive. There's energy flowing through certain systems, life support, navigation, even defensive turrets. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Defensive turrets? Then whoever is here does not want visitors. As they explored further, they entered a chamber that pulsed with a faint blue light. In the center of the room, suspended in a containment field, was a figure human, unconscious, connected to tubes and machinery that glowed softly. Kale froze. Lyra's breath caught. "That's a human," Kale whispered. "And they're alive." Lyra stepped closer, studying the figure. "We need to wake them, carefully. They may be the key to understanding what happened on this ship." Kale worked quickly, bypassing the containment field and stabilizing the life support systems. The figure's eyes fluttered open, revealing a young human with a mixture of fear and curiosity. They looked at Kale first, then at Lyra, hesitation and recognition crossing their face. You're not alone," the human said weakly. "I thought I was the last one." Kale helped them out of the containment field, supporting their weight as Lyra monitored their vital signs. "You're safe now," he said gently. "We'll get you out of here. But first, tell us what happened." The human took a shaky breath. "We were exploring outer sectors. Something attacked the ship. I don't know exactly what, but it was fast, intelligent, and relentless. I managed to shut down most systems and hide, but I couldn't escape completely. I waited, hoping someone would come." Lyra's eyes softened. "You're lucky we found you. We will get you to safety." Kale nodded. "We'll need to move quickly. The energy signature suggests someone or something has been monitoring the ship. They may return." With careful precision, Kale navigated the derelict vessel back into open space, bringing the rescued human aboard their ship. Lyra and Kale worked together to stabilize their new companion, ensuring they were healthy, hydrated, and able to travel. As they continued through the uncharted sectors, the three of them formed a cautious team. The rescued human, though weak from long isolation, possessed knowledge of the sector and its hazards. They shared information about hidden passages, dangerous energy fields, and the presence of rival factions that preyed on isolated travelers. During their journey, Lyra and Kale grew closer. The shared danger, the long hours of navigation, and the mutual trust strengthened the bond between them. Lyra found herself admiring Kale's unwavering focus, his cleverness in every maneuver, and his courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Kale, in turn, respected Lyra's intelligence, her ability to remain calm under pressure, and the quiet strength that had carried her through years of ruling an empire. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's viewports, Kale spoke softly. 5 years apart. Feels like no time at all, yet also like an eternity. "I never forgot you, Lyra." Lyra turned to him, her expression gentle but determined. "And I never forgot you, Kale. That night in the jungle, it changed me. It reminded me that courage, loyalty, and trust are more important than any title or duty. And now, here we are, facing the galaxy together." Kale reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "We've both survived incredible odds. And yet, we found each other again. That says something about destiny, maybe. Lyra's gaze softened. Says something about humans and Zephorians alike, about bravery, trust, and the connections that endured despite time and distance. Their moment of quiet reflection was interrupted by an alert from the ship's sensors. Multiple ships were approaching rapidly, their signatures unmistakable. They were fast, coordinated, and clearly. Hunting for them. Kale's jaw tightened. They've found us. We need to prepare. Lyra activated the ship's defensive systems, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. We can't outrun them forever. We need strategy, not just speed. Kale nodded. Agreed. Follow my lead. Trust the ship hand. Trust me. Duh. Pursuers closed in, energy weapons charging, and engines roaring. Kale maneuvered through the sectors with precision, using asteroid belts, debris fields, and narrow channels to their advantage. Lyra monitored every movement, adjusting shields and preparing countermeasures. The battle was intense. Energy blasts lit the darkness, striking nearby asteroids and sending shards of rock spinning through space. Kale's skill was unmatched. He moved with instinctive precision, anticipating every move of their enemies. Lyra supported him, calculating trajectories, monitoring weaknesses, and coordinating defensive systems. The rescued human, now stronger, assisted where they could, providing critical data about enemy tactics and hidden paths through the sector. Together, the three of them became a formidable team, their combined intelligence and bravery outmatching even the experienced hunters pursuing them. After hours of tense maneuvers, Kale found a hidden sector on uncharted nebula filled with dense gas clouds and electromagnetic storms. He guided the ship into the nebula, using its chaotic energy to mask their presence. The pursuing ships struggled to maintain tracking, their sensors confused by the interference. Lyra exhaled. Relief. Washing over her, we're safe. For now. Kale gave a small, confident smile. For now. But the galaxy is full of dangers. We need to stay vigilant, keep moving, and trust each other. They navigated deeper into the nebula, the gas clouds swirling around, them in brilliant colors. It was beautiful, yet dangerous, a reminder that even in the most perilous situations, the galaxy held wonders worth experiencing. As they moved through the nebula, Kale glanced at Lyra. 5 years apart, 8 now. Here we are, together, facing the galaxy side by side. I never imagined this would happen. Lyra smiled softly, her hand brushing against his. Neither did I, but it is real, Kale, and we will face whatever comes next, together. The rescued human watched them, sensing the unspoken bond between the two. It was powerful, built on trust, courage, and shared experience. Even in the vast, dangerous expanse of space, it was clear that this connection would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As the ship moved through the swirling nebula, Lyra and Kale prepared for the next stage of their journey. They knew that more threats awaited, that rivals would not give up easily, and that the galaxy would continue to test their courage and skill. But they also knew that together, they were stronger than any danger, cleverer than any enemy, and bound by a connection that had survived 5 years apart and countless challenges, for now.
Act.
They were alive, together, and ready. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but they faced it with courage, intelligence, and trust. No matter what lay ahead, they would confront it as a team human. Zephorian and companion, united by fate and the enduring strength of their bond.